Hello, class. This is Willie Malpica, and today I'd like to share the Roaring Twenties and the influence it had on the 20th century. To be a little bit more specific, I felt that it had an influence on the Dadaism art movement. But before I get on into the influence, let's talk a little bit about what was happening in the 20s. Here we have, in my key points, I have Prohibition. From Prohibition, we have jazz, speakeasies, and the flappers that emerged from the speakeasies. We also had inventions such as the hairdryer, parachute, and radios. And as you can see here, I attached some photos of what the style may have looked like back then. So we'll start with Prohibition. And what I found from the website, what's happening in the peopleshistory.com, we have that the 18th Amendment passed, which would make the consumption and sale of alcohol illegal, which was a huge thing back then. Congress passes Volstead Act, October 28th, 1919. Act goes into effect January 16th. From Prohibition, we get speakeasies, which are discreet bars that play jazz music along with performers by flappers. Flappers were extravagant dancers with over-the-top style. As we can see here on the left side, those weren't exactly the same dresses that were worn while performing. They were a little bit shinier. It looked like confetti on a dress. But you get the point. It was similar to what we see here. And then it goes on by saying what I just said: flashy material with extra material on there, neat hairstyles, over the top hats, the curls. It all came from this era. So alongside with that, inventions that came out of the 20s were the hairdryer, parachute, radios, and a bunch more. But those were the three that stood out to me the most. In August 20th, the first ever radio transmission was ever made, and shortly after, radio started to become a common item in houses. So Dadaism, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I might be butchering that, but from what I got from the artstory.org, we get that it's artistic and literary movement that started late 19th century, and it was an art movement to essentially just make mockery of the bourgeoisie, which was the middle class at the time. Artists that were involved in this art movement used many mediums, so to speak, right? So there was a lot of poetry, photography, sculpture, painting, and collages. And most of these arts were made to make fun of materialistic things, make fun of nationalistic ideas. So here we have some pieces by Hannah Hoche, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. Sorry if I'm butchering that. And here from artsy.net, we have a little description about her. And it says that Hoche preferred metaphoric imagery to more direct text box confrontational approach. She focused more on gender issues and is recognized as pioneering feminist art for works such as Das schönes Mädchen, and I probably butchered that completely. So both of these pieces were created in the 20s, and as we had mentioned earlier, with the prohibition and the flappers and the females really being sexualized during this era, we can see that Hannah does really portray all these issues kind of in her work, and we can see that with the overly top hair from this left side piece, with the girl right here on this top right, and then another female here with a bulb on her head, being confronted by this man that looks like he wants to fight. And then over here on the right, we can see more females, and this is exactly what the flapper performers looked like back in the day. And we can see some attributes here of other female parts being added to the females on top, maybe kind of trying to portray this, that we're trying to be someone else. And then you can see from the cutouts of that it's a man, that there's a man that's kind of envisioning this, that's taking control of all of it, that it's being sexualized. And there's no real power to the woman. And I want to backtrack a little bit here. I forgot to mention the BMW symbols and the tire wheel here on the left-sided picture. During this time, automobile sales were skyrocketing. It was something that took over America during the 1920s, especially the Model T car. And even though BMW is a German vehicle, it was also a booming industry in Germany. And here are my works cited. Thanks for listening.